Hello, welcome to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame induction ceremony honoring Arlen Christenson. I'm Patty Dreyer, president of the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Foundation, and I'll be your MC today. We have pre-recorded some parts of this event, but we'll also host a live interview with Arlen as a special guest here. You'll want to hear from him. I'm located in Stevens Point, the heart of Wisconsin, at the Schmeeckley Reserve Visitor Center on the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point campus. We are pleased to have you join us, and we are grateful for the technology and the computer technologists that bring us together today. After this induction ceremony, I think you will agree that we would be hard-pressed to find someone with greater integrity who has made a more significant and lasting difference through environmental policy, law, and mentorship in Wisconsin. In pursuit of environmental justice, Arlen Christenson saw to it that public rights had strong legal representation. He gave voice to us all. In short, his legacy is ours to share today in the quality of our state's air, waters, and other natural resources. This is what it's all about, isn't it? Getting to honor really great people doing really great things for our state. Let's get started by thanking our event sponsors for making this program possible today. The gold sponsors include Yeager Mellerop Family Charitable Trust and Secura Insurance Companies. Our silver sponsors include Community Foundation for the Fox Valley Region, Tom Dawson, a donation in recognition of Wisconsin's youth conservation leaders, Gathering Waters, Northeast Wisconsin Land Trust, Jerry and Marilyn Knuth via Thrivent Choice, and Wisconsin Society for Ornithology. The bronze sponsors today include Julia M. Boltz, Stephen Bourne, DeWitt Law Firm, Christine Euclid and Doug Steege, Joanne M. and Richard C. Hemp, Peter McKeever, Peter A. and Sharon A. Peshek, Sierra Club Wisconsin Chapter, Wildlife Society Wisconsin Chapter, and the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. In-kind contributions come from the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. Let me share how this event will flow. We will feature two distinguished guests sharing the highlights of Arlen's life and career. We will present Arlen with his official recognition from the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame and an official legislative citation. Then I'll have the honor of conducting a live interview with Arlen Christenson. This will give us all a chance to hear from him personally, to have him share a story. At the close of the event, with Arlen's video montage being replayed, like we had it at the opening of the ceremony, we knew you'd want to watch it again. We will turn on the live chat feature so that attendees of this induction ceremony today may share thoughts, memories, and gratitude with Arlen. This is our way to host a reception line. And as you offer those special thoughts, we will have them recorded and send them in a written package to Arlen so he won't miss any of those wonderful thoughts from you. Are you ready? Let's get started by sharing some background on the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame and the induction process.
The Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Foundation was created in 1984 to encourage the growth and practice of a conservation ethic as a legacy for the people of Wisconsin. The Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame is a nonprofit organization guided by a board of directors. Voting member organizations represent more than 30 conservation organizations from around Wisconsin. Each year, the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame inducts up to 3 people into the Hall of Fame. To date, there are over 100 inductees who have been honored. You can learn about each of these conservation champions on the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame website or by visiting the Hall of Fame Gallery. The Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Gallery of Inductees is located in beautiful Schmeeckley Reserve, which is a natural area on the campus of the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, with 5 miles of nature trails and wildlife viewing opportunities. Inside the Schmeeckley Reserve Visitor Center, guests can view engraved wooden plaques about inductees, with quotes highlighting their contributions. A touchscreen computer gives visitors a chance to connect with Wisconsin's conservation heritage as they browse the stories and learn about the achievements of each inductee. Any person or organization can nominate someone for induction into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. Nominees have an array of environmental and conservation-related backgrounds and varying types of education and experience. From writers to artists, from educators to policymakers, from researchers to managers, Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame heroes come from all backgrounds and walks of life. Based on standards and criteria set by the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Board of Directors, all inductees must have significant ties to Wisconsin, and their contributions must have wide-reaching impact, affecting a range of natural resources. Each summer, a 5-member Board of Governors reviews nominations. The highly esteemed governors are an independent body and have in-depth knowledge of Wisconsin's conservation history. The governors select 5 nominations to forward to the Board of Directors and voting member organizations for their consideration. The board members and organization representatives select the following year's inductees from that list of finalists at their annual fall meeting. While voting membership in the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame is only open to organizational members of the foundation, individuals may participate in the mission by providing annual support as affiliate members. The financial support of member organizations and affiliate members allows the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame to celebrate, advance, and share Wisconsin's conservation legacy as it hosts induction ceremonies and maintains inductee archives. We invite you to learn more about the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame and Wisconsin's conservation heritage by visiting our website at wchf.org.
Let me introduce you to our first speaker today. Our first speaker is Melissa Scanlon. Professor Scanlon holds the Lindy B. Uline Endowed Chair of Water Policy and directs the Center for Water Policy at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee's School of Freshwater Sciences. She's the founder of Midwest Environmental Advocates.
Thank you. I'm honored to celebrate Arlen Christenson's professional accomplishments for his 2022 induction into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. This is such an exciting honor for him today. I remember the first time I met Arlen at the University of Wisconsin Law School back in 1995 as I trudged up Bascom Hill to talk to him about my plans to go to law school. And I wanted to speak with him because Arlen was a highly respected law professor who specialized in environmental, land use, local government, and administrative law. He'd been working in the field since 1963, and I sought advice from him. He had a belief in protecting public rights in Wisconsin's natural resources, and of course, we all know Wisconsin has long enjoyed a reputation as a state rich in natural beauty and recreational opportunities. But what Arlen saw was that those resources required lawyers and experts to uphold the unorganized and underfunded interests of all of us in courts, administrative proceedings, and before the legislature. He played a key role in shaping the Public Intervenor's Office during its most formative and effective years. And let me tell you a little bit about that office. It was established in 1965 with a legislative mandate to champion public rights and natural resources and ensure government accountability. The lawyers in that office were assistant attorney generals. They went to court, advised community members of their legal rights, and offered guidance and assistance to both administrative agencies and the legislature on new legislation and administrative rules. In 1975, Arlen authored a report that convinced Attorney General Bronson LaFollette to implement a variety of his recommendations to empower those attorney generals even further to protect public rights in our natural resources. And after that point, he played a formative role in the development of the Public Intervenor's Office. Republican and Democratic attorney generals appointed and reappointed him to advise the Public Intervenor's Office from 1975 until the office was abolished in 1995. And Arlen was there to ensure that they were effective conservation advocates that improved the state and sometimes national policy. So when I met him in 1995 and asked his advice about law school, this was right when the Public Intervenor's Office was being abolished. I told him that I wanted to become a public interest lawyer, and his advice to me was to go elsewhere to get my education. So I went to the University of California, Berkeley, and that may have been the last time I would have seen a professor at UW Law School. However, I wanted to come back to my home state to practice environmental law. So the second meeting I had with Arlen was in 1998. And this was when I was getting close to graduating from law school. And once again, I went to Arlen for some advice. And he right away jumped in to help me with forming Midwest Environmental Advocates. This was going to be the state's first nonprofit environmental law center. And we were going to be privately filling through a nonprofit, some of the gaps that were left when the Public Intervenor's Office was abolished. As a founding board member for Midwest Environmental Advocates, Arlen served for over 2 decades, helping us grow the state's first nonprofit environmental law center into a powerhouse of lawyers with a track record and a bright future. This is an office that's organized not for profit, but for charitable purposes. And we established a clinical externship at the University of Wisconsin's Law School, which was Arlen's idea. And through that externship, we had a steady stream of law students to orient to public interest environmental law. And that program continues today. Arlen also played a major role in land use policy as a founding board member of 1,000 Friends of Wisconsin, when that organization launched in 1989. He has truly inspired generations of environmental lawyers and created organizational structures where those lawyers can continue to advocate for public rights to counter well-organized economic self-interest. Arlen dedicated his career to ensuring public rights in Wisconsin's natural resources had strong legal representation, first through his leadership in the Public Intervenor's Office, and then at Midwest Environmental Advocates and 1,000 Friends of Wisconsin. He has inspired and mentored countless law students through his classroom teaching and supervision of their clinical work, including me, not as his student, but as someone who he really cared about and helped advise me in my career. And we all continue to carry the torch and light the way for the next generation of environmental lawyers. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Now, let me introduce you to our second speaker today. Our second speaker is Kathleen Falk, who is also inducted into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame this year. Kathleen Falk is a former Wisconsin public intervenor and former Dane County executive.
Thank you, Patty. So many years ago, the University of Wisconsin awarded Arlen the prestigious Wisconsin Idea Award. I had the honor of saying a few words then about why Arlen so richly deserved that award, so I'm honored and delighted to do the same here, where he so richly deserves to be in the Conservation Hall of Fame. Here's how I first got to know Arlen. I was a young lawyer working for Wisconsin's Environmental Decade, now called Clean Wisconsin, happily earning about $50 a week, typing my own legal briefs in our litigation. The powerhouse public intervenor, Peter Peshek, was leaving that important watchdog office and left really big shoes to fill. Arlen served on the Citizens Advisory Committee to that office, and I would be remiss not to note that two other Conservation Hall of Famers also served on that advisory committee, Ron Koshishek and Chuck Stoddard. I didn't know Arlen very well then, but I recall very distinctly that when he reached out to urge me to apply for the job, and he can be very persuasive. Grateful that the Attorney General then hired me to be a public intervener, I had the great pleasure to work with Tom Dawson, the other public intervener, who is an outstanding lawyer and a dear friend to Arlen and me, and who was one of those who nominated Arlen for this important award. Tom and I got to see Arlen in action almost daily for many years, as he was both our official policy advisor and personal mentor, but also because he was the UW law professor who supervised, along with Tom and I, this army of wonderful legal interns from the law school that helped do our work. We all learned from Arlen how to be better lawyers, how to be better advocates. We learned how better to push and when to pull, how to respect both sides of an argument and respect those who said our office went too far, as well as those who said our office didn't go far enough. Despite how strongly Arlen felt about the importance of our advocacy on any issue, such as mining or highways or public access to waters or wetlands or groundwater or pesticides, I never heard him say a hostile word about the people who disagreed with us. He role modeled how important it is to be strong, but not mean, how to be smart, but not arrogant. You'll recall that I earlier mentioned that I said a few words back when Arlen received the Wisconsin Idea Award. I don't recall all that I said then, but I do recall one comment that I thought summed up Arlen as best as I simply can. And I said, Arlen is like a Scandinavian schooner who is in the midst of a large and powerful storm at sea. While the seas are in turmoil and others are panicking about what to do, Arlen is cool and calm and confident. Not out of ignorance or pride, as he is one of the most humble persons I know, but because he is driven by an internal compass, a moral compass, that hones in on what is important and needs to be done, despite the challenges being battled out in the public forums. The distraction, the angst, the political pressures that swirl around the debates over our natural resources don't seem to faze him a bit. His moral compass just cuts right through it and makes it clear what direction we ought to sail. That moral compass is why he recommended to the Attorney General so many years ago that the Public Intervenor Office needed a Citizens Advisory Board to decide what cases to take on. So it wasn't just the view of one of the public intervenors. And so that the office would have long-standing institutional integrity. When the public intervenor office was abolished, it was that same moral compass that inspired him to help Melissa Stanley fill that void and to create and found the Midwest Environmental Advocates, and went on to do even more as he served as a founding board member there. At the same time that Arlen guided both the Public Intervenor Office and the Midwest Environmental Advocates to make these long-standing contributions to natural resources policy, he and his wife Judy were raising their two children. So let me take a moment to say how important family is to Arlen. He and Judy were and are always a team. When Arlen and Tom and I hosted our army of legal interns from the law school each semester, Judy was part of the gatherings. Arlen talked so often about his daughter Anne and his son John that I thought I had a bird's eye view watching them grow up. And it's only a surprise to Arlen and no one else that both Anne and John both have become lawyers. I just have to think there was something special in the air and water of his hometown of Amory in Polk County, which was then a community of about 1,500 people when he grew up, before he went off to UW River Falls and then UW Law School. No wonder he and Judy have owned a summer home in Clam Lake in northern Wisconsin for almost a half a century, a place that now his children and his 6 amazing grandchildren treasure enormously. So it's time now for Arlen, after about a half a century of inspiring so many young environmental advocates and creating important natural resources policy, to find your fishing pole and your hiking stick, gather with family and friends at Clam Lake, and enjoy a bit of what you have spent your lifetime protecting from others. Thank you.
On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Foundation, we officially recognize Arlen Christenson as being inducted into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. The quote on his plaque reads, as it'll be posted on our website, "The beneficiaries of public rights are diffuse, often unorganized, and have only small economic stakes as individuals. Without lawyers dedicated to protecting public rights, our air and water will be polluted, dammed, and privatized." That's a quote by Arlen Christenson. Congratulations, Arlen. You are now a member of this extraordinary group of conservationists in Wisconsin. We will now hear remarks from State Representative Katrina Shanklin, who will share a State of Wisconsin recognition.
Hi, I'm State Representative Katrina Shanklin with a citation of commendation from the state of Wisconsin. Know you by these presents. Whereas Arlen Christenson was born and raised in the farmlands and forests of Amory, Wisconsin, and served in the United States Navy between 1952 and 1954, graduated from the University of Wisconsin River Falls and the University of Wisconsin Law School, and became a highly respected professor at the UW Law School, specializing in environmental, land use, local government, and administrative law from 1963 until 2000, when he was granted emeritus status. And whereas he held a range of leadership positions serving as Wisconsin's Deputy Attorney General from 1966 to 1968, an Executive Assistant Attorney General from 1968 to 1969, and at the University of Wisconsin-Madison serving as Assistant to the Chancellor, Legal Advisor, from 1969 to 1971, Associate Dean of the Law School from 1972 to 1974, and co-director of the Center for Public Representation from 1974 to 75 and in 1977. And whereas Arlen played a central role in shaping the state's Public Intervenor's Office during its most formative and effective years, receiving bipartisan support for his appointments to advise the office from 1975 until 1995, during which time he authored a report for the Center for Public Representation on the Public Intervenor, which convinced Attorney General Bronson La Follette in 1975 to implement several of his recommendations to empower the attorney's abilities to protect public rights and natural resources. And whereas Arlen was founding board president of Midwest Environmental Advocates, helping grow Wisconsin's first nonprofit environmental law center into a powerhouse over the course of 2 decades. And he was also a founding board member of 1,000 Friends of Wisconsin when they launched in 1989. And whereas Arlen was listed in Who's Who of Outstanding Young Men in America in 1972, and he received the Wisconsin IDEA Award for applying academic research to natural resource policy development and implementation in 1994, the Wisconsin Stewardship Network Award, and the Lifetime Alumni Achievement Award from UW River Falls in 2018. And whereas his legacy will live on in the countless law students and lawyers throughout the country who benefited from his classroom teaching and supervision of their clinical work with the Public Intervenor's Office and Midwest Environmental Advocates, and who are carrying the torch forward now to advance public rights and natural resources. And whereas Arlen Christenson has been named a 2022 inductee to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. Now, therefore, the members of the Wisconsin Legislature, on the motion of Representative Katrina Shankland, do hereby honor Arlen Christenson for his outstanding service and commitment to conservation, and thank him for his inspiring leadership and dedication to environmental stewardship.
Hello, we're now live for the ceremony in Stevens Point, and I am thrilled to have this opportunity to be with you here today. We want to congratulate Arlen one more time. And also, Arlen, thank you for your professional leadership in helping to ensure a more just and healthy future for all of us. Your dedication to innovating more effective legal protections for our natural resources has made a significant difference in our state. All the while, you work to ensure our public rights were also represented, which means that we here today are beneficiaries of your extraordinary leadership and inspiration. And your mentees, those you have taught over the years and inspired through your teaching, keep your legacy alive too. In short, you have set in motion ripple effects, which keep on giving back to all of us who care about Wisconsin natural resources and conservation. So now it's your turn, Arlen, to share your story in a live interview with me. Please join us, Arlen. Hello, Arlen. I understand you're dialing in or calling in. Whatever. You're in the meeting from the UW-Madison Arboretum neighborhood in Madison, Wisconsin. We welcome you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yep, and I understand Judy's just off the edge of the camera with you today, and we want to recognize that every great conservationist has someone else behind them as well.
And she is more than behind.
oh, bless your heart. Okay, so Arlen, how does it feel to be here today, being honored with the highest conservation award in Wisconsin?
It's too much for words. It's humbling. And mostly, but people I admire so much, as Melissa and Kathleen say the things that they said. I'm overwhelmed and blessed.
So let's look back a little bit. Let's help everybody understand a little bit more about your background and what shaped you into growing into the conservationist that you've become. What kind of experiences have you had?
Well, it's hard to say. As has been said earlier, I grew up north, in the small town of Amory, and from the very earliest days, I was hanging out in the woods and the lakes and rivers and hunting and fishing and all that. And so it's just been natural that and as I was growing up and getting older, I recognized that those resources, those things that I enjoyed so much, didn't didn't take care of themselves. Someone had to be on watch, and so that was one of the things that's what inspired me to do some of the things that I did.
On watch, on watch. So why did you decide to be an attorney then, Arlen?
I guess I decided at one point I did debate and in college at River Falls, and it went pretty well. So I learned that I could put together an argument. I could talk in public, and I hadn't had much idea of being a lawyer. I didn't know any lawyers very well, but and then I saw that lawyers were needed for this, and I thought, well, I'll try law school, see if I can do it.
And the rest
And it
is
worked.
history. That's right. So in law school, why did environmental justice resonate with you? I mean, wasn't it a new concept then?
Well, in the 60s, environmental justice, that term was more a civil rights term, by and large. People who used the term were more often talking about the poor and minorities who were whose environment needed to be protected. It was later it gradually came to be more talking about natural resources and gradually it became apparent to me and others that it was important to recognize that there were rights that the resource had, that inherent in the natural resources of this country is the right to be, and the natural resources won't continue to exist unless somebody protects that right, and they can't. The natural resources can't protect themselves.
Mhm.
Somebody has to do it. Some human person, so I decided that at least part of the time I had to be one.
So it sounds almost like it was a moral obligation you were feeling, or that there was some other kind of calling to it.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So
it was
when
a
we-
moral obligation.
Okay. So when we talk about environmental justice, I mean, this idea about environmental justice looks different to different people. So what's it look like to you?
Environmental justice to me looks like the right of the resource to exist and prosper. It's inherent in the resource. That's where the justice is. It doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to, but it's inherent in the resource.
So Arlen, I understand that in talking with you that you helped to seed the idea of the public intervenor when you were deputy attorney general. So where did the idea come from?
Well, that's interesting, because it didn't come from me or from it came from the Kellett Commission in the 60s. Bill Kellett, who was an industrialist, was appointed by Warren Knowles to head up this great study of the state government and produced this big report. And one of the things the report did was to merge the Conservation Commission and the department and the resource and the Department of Natural Resources. And so the Conservation Commission no longer existed. And somewhere in that process, somebody said there has to be a voice for the natural resources. And so the public intervener was introduced in that bill. But the public intervener just sat there by and large. It was in the Department of Justice, but it didn't really do much. You didn't hear about it. It was pretty quiet. And when Bronson LaFollette was Attorney General, he brought me into the Department of Justice as first executive assistant and then deputy attorney general. And we looked at this and we said, this is really something here. We should get it going. And we appointed a public intervener, Tom Dawson, and then later Kathleen Falk, and they really got it going.
Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite parts of this is about that Center for Public Representation that you helped to start with a team of other people. And so I would love to have you tell everybody a little bit about the role and connection to the Office of the Public Intervenor and what concepts drove its creation.
Well, CPR came along after the public intervenor was abolished. It was
Okay.
The point was to have when there was no longer a public intervenor, there should be a voice for natural resources, and that was CPR.
I see.
And
I see. Yeah, and so one of the things that I think a lot of folks may not know about the significance of this work that came out of the Public Intervenor's Office is that it's incredible. So I have a quote I want to read from Jody Habush-Sinkin's article in a 2004 Marquette Law Review article. And it says, the Public Intervenor's Office was an invaluable resource, and it helped to build citizen and legislative support for the passage of the following landmark laws: Wisconsin's DDT ban, the 1982 Employees' Right to Know law, acid rain legislation, Wisconsin's 1984 groundwater law, and non-metallic reclamation bill of 1994. What would you say about these laws as part of Wisconsin's conservation heritage, Arlen?
well, I think one of the first things I'd say is that the people who voted for the original legislation creating the public intervenor would have been astonished to see that this is what the public intervenor was doing. I don't think anybody expected that the public intervenor would be involved in legislation. That was something that was somewhat controversial. That more than somewhat. That the public intervenor it was clear that the public intervenor was to represent public rights in court, but the legislative part, the lobbying part, was something that I think we kind of snuck into.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
So what are the differences, if any, between the Office of the Public Intervenor and other environmental advocacy groups? And do you believe that there's a need for a public intervenor office today?
Well, the fundamental difference between the public intervenor and other environmental offices such as CPR is that the public intervener was in government. It was a government office. It was an insider. All of the rest are outsiders. They're private agencies. And the public intervener inside government could have access and authorities and powers that no agency, no entity outside of government could have. And that's the big difference.
So do you believe there's a need, if you were asked to help create a public intervener office today?
Yes, absolutely. There is. And I know that there have been continuing attempts over the years to bring it back, and sometimes got very close, but haven't made it yet.
So I understand, as it was mentioned in other presentations today, that you were part of teams to launch 1,000 Friends of Wisconsin and Midwest Environmental Advocates. So what lessons, Arlen, would you share with everybody today that you take from those endeavors?
Well, the big lesson is that dedicated people who can make a big difference if they get together and make their efforts organized. They can get things done to protect the natural resources of the state. The other lesson is that there are inherent difficulties in agencies that are outside of government, knocking on the door, so to speak. And at the same time, there are a lot of things that those organizations can do, and they have a lot of ability to influence government.
So your wife Judy and your daughter Anne have shared, Arlen, because we have to have a couple more personal questions in here, you know. They have shared that they think that if you have a mantra, that it might simply be justice for all. And they say that your focus on compromise and equity has come in part from your vast experience in arbitration and mediation. So what do you think? Do they have it right?
Oh yeah, they know me pretty well. and I think it's true that the arbitration and mediation work that I've done has made an impact on how I approach issues and dealing with people and dealing with government. And yes, I think that's true.
And I think that at some point you were talking about compromise, how it helped you refine some skills to get yourself to, at least in my interpretation of how you've shared that with me, that it's about how you get to compromise. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's important for all of us to remember is that compromise is not a bad word. And one of the reasons it's good, can be a good thing to do, is because I don't have all the answers. I think I have some, and I think I know some things that should be done, but I don't know everything, and it's good for me and everybody else to listen to others and maybe to find common ground.
So talk about public rights versus public interests and why you chose to dedicate your life to public rights.
Oh, public rights. Public rights are enforceable. I mean, they if you have a right, there are various ways you can protect and enforce that right. Public interest is more amorphous, and not legally enforceable. And I'm a lawyer, and that's my work.
So what's your advice, Arlen, to the next generation of conservationists, especially given the state of our world right now with war, mass extinctions, and other serious local and global environmental concerns?
Keep focused on we aren't making any new environment. Well, the environmental, we need to protect the environment because we aren't making any more. What we have is what we have, and it is, there are so many forces out there, so many things that are negatively affecting the environment, and we have to organize and get together with the purpose of protecting and promoting the environment.
So you've traveled to some beautiful places across the planet, such as Wales, which was featured in your video montage. How have your travels enlightened your work?
Oh, one of the things that I think of when I think of that is when you travel around the world, you go to places where there are a lot of features, both natural and human-made, are very, very old and very, very, very well used and still well preserved. And so in some places, some people have for centuries been doing environmental protection and doing it very well. And then of course there are other places where they haven't. But it teaches you that it can be done. And sometimes it teaches you something about how it can be done, but that's an important thing from travel.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us today, Arlen, before we say farewell on this interview and continue the ceremony?
No, I guess I'd like to maybe just say thank you to some people, starting with my wife and my daughter, particularly, who has been very, very helpful in preparing here. And I'm thinking too of when I was in law school, my early environmental, we didn't talk about the environment much when I was in law school, but a professor by the name of Jake Boischer was my mentor. And then there was Jim McDonald, who helped put together the clinical program in the Attorney General's office. And there was Bronson Lavalette, who appointed me to positions there. Oh, these people, and then Kathleen and Tom Dawson have been a very important part of what I've been able to do. there are a lot of more. I may not, maybe shouldn't have started, but anyway, that's what I wanted. I'm thinking of so many people who have been so helpful in my life, and I'm so indebted and so grateful.
Well, it is a pleasure and an honor to share this time with you today and to hear you tell more about your very own story. It's a rich thing for folks like me to be here and to listen and to learn and to be inspired. So I thank you so much, Arlen.
Well, I thank you, and among the people that I should have listed in my list of people I want to thank, you and the Conservation Hall of Fame. Yeah, it's just so impressive.
Wonderful. Well, we couldn't do it without Sunshine Buchholz, who's in the side by side with us every step of the way. Well, listen, Arlen, we're going to say goodbye to you right now, and we're going to finish with a little bit of a receiving line virtual ceremony style. So we say farewell to you, sir.
Okay. Should I turn off my equipment here?
Yes, and you get to take a big sigh of relief after you mute yourself.
Okay.
All right. Well, as we near the end of the ceremony and Arlen is taking care of shutting off his camera and his microphone, we just wanted you to know that the chat feature is being turned on right now and enabled for all of you who are viewing the event live today to put in some congratulatory messages, memories, thank yous, and so on that you want to share with him. And we'll gather it all together and we'll make sure that Arlen and Judy and the entire family get a copy of it so they won't miss anything that you have shared. We also want to let you know that a recording of this event will be available on the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame website by the end of the week. And so we invite you to share that news with others that couldn't attend today, or perhaps you would like to watch again. This will be available to share Arlen Christenson's legacy for decades to come. If you'd like to make a donation to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame in honor of Arlen or other inductees, you can visit our website and take care of it there on the Join and Donate tab. Your donation will help us share the accomplishments of Arlen and other inductees with an even wider audience, and we so appreciate your help as we continue to advance our mission of celebrating, advancing, and sharing Wisconsin's conservation legacy through the stories of our conservation heroes. Again, we want to thank our sponsors for this event. The gold sponsors are Yeager Mellerop Family Charitable Trust and Secure Insurance Companies. Our silver sponsors include Community Foundation for the Fox Valley Region, Tom Dawson, a donation in recognition of Wisconsin's youth conservation leaders, Gathering Waters, Northeast Wisconsin Land Trust, Jerry and Marilyn Knuth via Thrive and Choice, Wisconsin Society for Ornithology. Our bronze level sponsors include Julia M. Boltz, Stephen Bourne, DeWitt Law Firm, Christine Euclid and Doug Steege, Joanne M. and Richard C. Hemp, Peter McKeever, Peter A. and Sharon A. Peshek, Sierra Club Wisconsin Chapter, Wildlife Society Wisconsin Chapter, and the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. Our in-kind contributions come from the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. As you type in your thoughts for Arlen into the chat, I'll read a few excerpts. We are only able to share a few of them. There are many that have come in, so know that all of your thoughts will get to the family. But this way, you get to hear a little bit of what everybody else has been sharing. And then we will conclude the ceremony by playing the video tribute a couple times through. So here's a congratulations note from Christopher G. Richards, Vice Chancellor for University Advancement and the Executive Director of the UWSP Foundation. Arlen, I was delighted to see the news that you are being inducted into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. Congratulations on this honor. Certainly your name fits well and deserves to be enshrined along with the distinguished group of existing members, difference makers, who worked with passion and diligence to conserve a critical element and defining characteristic of our home state. Then, and that was just an excerpt. Then here's another one. This one comes from Tom Dawson and Mary Rose Teves. Arlen, congratulations on your well-deserved induction into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. Mary Rose and I appreciate our long relationship and work together, as well as our lasting friendship and inspiration. Then from Dr. Mary Ann Heidemann out of Rogers City, Mississippi. I take it back. It's probably Michigan. I apologize on the abbreviation here for the state. So Dr. Mary Ann Heidemann says, I'm very pleased to see Arlen Christenson inducted into the Conservation Hall of Fame. This is a well-deserved honor. In reading about Arlen's conservation work, much is said about his impact on lost students. However, Arlen also collaborated with faculty and students at UW-Madison's Institute for Environmental Studies, now the Gaylord Nelson Institute. And these students came from many different disciplines. I was an environmental planner seeking a doctorate in land resources at the Institute when Professor Christenson agreed to be my advisor. Then Dr. Mary Heidemann goes on to explain the multidisciplinary team and how showcasing and working with others in other professional fields was part of Arlen Christenson's legacy. Here's another one from Jim Arts and Helene Nelson. It's part of, it's just an excerpt. It says, Arlen's sustained work has made an enormous difference for conservation in Wisconsin and beyond. He has been an exemplary teacher, leader, collaborator, and as necessary, a fighter for important ideals. In the course of all this good yet difficult work, he kept his own and others' humanity in mind. He advanced a positive agenda in a positive way. We are all better for this man's life and work. And then I think that's all the time we have for the congratulations notes, though there are many more that Arlen will get to read later. It's time now for the final couple times through of the video montage and to say thank you everyone for joining us here today in conservation to honor Arlen Christenson.